Hi, this is Muhammad Imran. How are you? Today we will discuss the use of modal auxiliary verbs in English. So there are 9 modal auxiliary verbs. For example, will, would, may, might, can, could, must, should, and ought to. So modal express spatial meaning. For example, necessity, obligation, permission, probability, prediction, etc. So we will discuss in this video what are the features or what are the characteristics of modal auxiliary verbs. So let's discuss these characteristics one by one. In declarative sentences, modals are placed before man verb. For example, if I say, I can speak English. So can is a modal auxiliary verb and it is placed before the man verb speak. Or if I say, you could do it. So do is a man verb and I place could before the man verb. And if in a sentence there is already auxiliary be or have, then modals are placed before auxiliary be or have. For example, you must have done it. So there is already have, right? So we place must before the verb have. You must have done it. Or if there is be, for example, you must be hungry. You must be hungry. So you see that already be is there. So I am placing modal verb before be, right? Or she must be running. She must be running. So you can see here that I am placing the modal verb before the verb be, which is an auxiliary verb. The first characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb is that they can be contracted. We can use short form of modal auxiliary verbs. For example, instead of I cannot speak English, I can say I can't speak English. Or instead of you could not do it, I can say you couldn't do it. Or instead of I will not be here tomorrow, I can say I won't be here tomorrow. So I'm using the short form of will not as won't, right? The short form of could not as couldn't, and the short form of cannot as can't. But we can't use the short or contracted form of the main verb. So that is the first characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb which distinguish it from the main verb. Now let's talk about the second characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb. The second characteristic is that modals undergo subject auxiliary inversion, right? We can change the places of subject and auxiliary verb. Like for example, I say that you could do it. So you is a subject and could is auxiliary. So I can change the position. I can say, could you do it? Right? To form a question, yes, no question. Or for example, you can speak English. You is subject. Can is a modal auxiliary verb. So I can change. I can make inversion. I can say that can you speak English? To form a question. Yes, no question. Right? So this is another characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb. While we cannot form a yes, no question if we are using man verb. For example, if I say that you speak English, I can't say that speak you English. We have another structure for that to form a question of the main verb. So that is the second characteristic which distinguishes modal auxiliary verb from main verb. Modal auxiliary verbs undergo subject auxiliary inversion, while main verbs cannot go through this way. So that is the second characteristics. The third characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb is that modals are repeated with the primary stress. For example, if I tell you that you can't do it and you tell me, well, I can. So you are putting primary stress on the modal auxiliary verb can. Or if I tell you that you will not come here again tomorrow and you tell me, well, I will. So again, you are putting primary stress on the modal auxiliary verb well, while you cannot put primary stress on the main verb. So most often we are putting primary stress on modal auxiliary verb when we are responding with yes/no question. So this is the third characteristic which distinguishes modal auxiliary verb from the main verb in a sentence. The fourth characteristic of a modal auxiliary verb is that modals do not take the present tense s or es. Similarly, that we cannot add ed to make the past form of modal auxiliary verbs. Like for example, we cannot add ed with the modal auxiliary verb can. Similarly, we cannot add ed with the modal auxiliary verb will. Or we cannot add ed with the modal auxiliary verb would. Similarly, we cannot add s or es even if we are using third person singular pronoun. I can't say that she cans do it, right? I cannot add s or es with the modal auxiliary verb. Similarly, we cannot use infinitive with modal auxiliary verb. Like for example, I can't say that I came to do it, right? So I cannot use infinitive with modal auxiliary verb. Or I can't say I will to help you. I can say I will help you, but I can't say I will to help you. So exceptions are everywhere. For example, in the beginning, I told you that we can contract modal auxiliary verbs, or we can make contraction of modal auxiliary verbs. So exceptions are already there. For example, we cannot make contracted form of the modal auxiliary verb may not. We will say may not, right? Like we can say I can't do it, right? But I cannot say I may not come. So there is no short form of may not. So this is exception. Similarly, that infinitive we do not use with the modal auxiliary verb, but we have one modal auxiliary verb, that is ought to, where we use to plus verb. So this is also exceptions. So exceptions are there. Thank you so much. It was all about the characteristics of modal auxiliary verbs. So on the basis of these characteristics, we can identify modal auxiliary verb, and we can distinguish modal auxiliary verb from the main verb on the basis of these four characteristics. In coming video, we will talk in detail about each modal auxiliary verb, and we will be talking about the primary and secondary functions of modal auxiliary verbs. So keep watching and enjoy learning English with Muhammad Imran. Please subscribe and like the channel. Thank you so much.